Welcome to our video on A4.1 Evolution and Speciation, a crucial part of the standard level in biology. We will also be touching upon A4.2 within this discussion. So how do we define evolution? Simply put, it's a change in heritable characteristics within a population over time. Let's break that down. Heritable characteristics means traits that can be passed from parents to offspring, like eye color. And in a population is key. We are not talking about a single individual changing, but rather a collective shift across an entire group of organisms. Many factors that can drive evolution, and we will dive into one of the most well-known, natural selection. But first, let's explore how our understanding of these changes has itself evolved. Early in scientific thought, there was a compelling idea called Lamarckism, proposed by the biologist Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. He theorized that organisms could acquire traits during their lifetime. Say a blacksmith developing strong arm muscles and then pass these acquired traits directly to their offspring. While this idea seemed plausible at the time, it has since been scientifically falsified. This process is falsification, where ideas are tested and disproven, is incredibly important in science as it clears the way for more accurate understanding. And that leads us to where we are today, the widely accepted theory of evolution. When we say theory, it's vital to understand that in science this doesn't mean a mere guess or unproven hypothesis. The theory of evolution is supported by an overwhelming amount of evidence, making it central to our comprehension in biology, and it is highly unlikely to be falsified in the same way Lamarckism was. Now, when we discuss evolution as a change in heritable characteristics, we must make a direct link to DNA. DNA is that remarkable molecule responsible for storing and transmitting hereditary information from one generation to the next. It contains the genetic codes for building proteins, which are the workhorses of our cells and organisms. Therefore, when scientists look for evidence of evolution, they often examine changes or similarities in DNA sequences or the resulting amino acid sequences of proteins between different organisms. We have a vast array of evidence suggesting that evolution has happened and continues to happen right now. Let's explore some of that compelling DNA evidence. Firstly, new sequences of DNA arise through mutation. These mutations can be beneficial, harmful, or neutral. Crucially, some mutations might offer organisms an advantage in their specific environment, making them more likely to survive and reproduce. We can actually observe these advantageous mutations becoming more common in population over time, a clear sign of evolution in action. Secondly, the fact that some genes are common to many different species provides strong evidence for a common ancestor. If diverse species share fundamental genetic blueprints, it suggests that they all originated from a shared lineage. Finally, genes in closely related species are significantly more similar than those in more distantly related species. This beautifully illustrates both the unity and diversity of life. The unity lies in shared genetic heritage, while the diversity arises from new mutations and adaptations to different environmental pressures. One incredibly clear piece of evidence supporting evolution by natural selections comes from what we call artificial selection. This is also known as selective breeding. Artificial selection is exactly what it sounds like. Human exercise control over which individuals in a population get to reproduce. This is precisely how countless plants and animals have been domesticated throughout history, and the process continues today. Imagine you are a farmer aiming to cultivate taller trees. Instead of letting nature take its course, you would deliberately select the two tallest trees from your current generation and breed them. When you plant the seeds for this breeding pair, you will find that the resulting population, on average, consists of taller trees than one previous generation. By repeating this process over many generations, you can end up with trees dramatically different from your original stock. This mechanism, where humans decide which traits are desirable, is very different from natural selection, where desirability of traits is determined by the environment. However, the underlying mechanism of change over time through selective breeding is the same. If we can bring about such significant changes in species through our deliberate choices, it powerfully demonstrates that similar processes can and do occur in the natural world. Another fantastic piece of evidence for evolution is something called a homologous structure. Homo means same, and these are structures that share the same evolutionary origin. They are inherited from a common ancestor. When we look at homologous structures, we expect to see underlying structural similarities, even if their function might be different. A classic example of it is the pentadactyl limb, the five-fingered limb found in many vertebrates, including humans, bats, whales, and birds. While a human uses their arm to grasp, a bat uses its wing for flight, and a whale uses its flipper for swimming. A closer examination reveals the same basic bone structure. The structural similarity, despite different functions, strongly support the idea that the diverse species all inherited this limb from a shared common ancestor. Homologous structures are a result of what we call divergent evolution, where a common ancestral structure evolves into different forms to serve different functions in various descendant species. In contrast to homologous structure, we have analogous structure. These are quite different. Analogous structures may perform the same function, but they have distinct structural qualities because they arose from different ancestral origins. This is a result of convergent evolution, where different ancestors produce species that end up very similar in terms of a particular feature, most likely because those species lived in similar environments and faced similar selective pressures. A great example is the wing of butterflies and the wings of birds. Both serve the function of flight, but their underlying structures are vastly different because they evolved independently from different ancestors. Similarly, the human eye and the dragonfly eye both enable sight, but their structural differences are an evidence to their separate evolutionary paths. While they serve the same purpose, their distinct origins explain why their internal structures differ so significantly. Divergent evolution describes how closely related species originally from a common ancestor evolve different traits over time due to varying environmental pressure, leading to increased differences among them. Conversely, convergent evolution occurs when distantly related or unrelated species independently develop similar traits or features in response to similar environmental challenges or selective pressures, resulting in analogous structure that serve similar functions despite different evolutionary origins. It is crucial to understand that evolution and speciation are not necessarily the same thing. As we have established, evolution is a change in heritable characteristics within a population over time. This process can sometimes lead to new species, but it doesn't mean always. Speciation, on the other hand, is a very specific event. It is the formation of a new species. For speciation to occur, a critical condition must be met. The population must become reproductively isolated. Recall the definition of a species: individuals that can reproduce and form fertile offspring. If populations are no longer able to interbreed and produce fertile offspring, they will over time diverge into distinct species. Reproductive isolation can happen in many ways. It could be a physical barrier, like a river changing course, a mountain range rising, or even a lava flow separating a once unified population, as depicted in this image. The key here is that these isolated groups no longer interbreed. Over generations, they evolve independently. Even if these populations were later brought back into contact and given opportunities to interbreed, they would be unable to produce fertile offspring. Once they reach this point, they are considered different species and speciation has officially occurred. This process requires two key elements to be true. The first key element for speciation is, as we have discussed, reproductive isolation, whether it is geographical, behavioral, or otherwise preventing interbreeding. The second crucial element is what we call differential selection. This occurs when environments exert different selective pressure on the isolated population. For example, one environment may favor traits that offer an advantage against a particular predator, while the other environment might favor traits that enhance survival in a different climate or against different type of disease. These differing environmental pressures mean that different traits become advantageous in each isolated population. When this happens over a sufficiently long period, the organisms in each population evolve along distinct pathways. So to recap, both reproductive isolation and differential selection are absolutely necessary for speciation to take place, leading to the incredible diversity of life we see on Earth. Evolution, a fundamental concept in biology, describes the change in heritable characteristics within a population over generation, driven by factors like natural selection. This process is deeply rooted in DNA, with mutations providing the raw material for variation. Evidence for evolution abounds, from human direct artificial selection to homologous structures showing shared ancestry and analogous structures revealing Convergent adaptation. Crucially, evolution can lead to speciation, the formation of new species, which requires both reproductive isolation and differential selection, acting on separate populations over time. Thank you for your focus today. Keep these ideas in mind, stay curious, and I look forward to exploring more IB biology with your next lesson.